Welcome back, everyone. If you are a focused learner who is absolutely dead set on conquering the SSC CPO exam, you are exactly where you need to be. Today, in this explainer, we are unpacking the ultimate, highly structured roadmap for this exam. We're tossing out all that vague, just study harder advice and zooming in on a precise, target-driven strategy based directly on a master blueprint we've analyzed. So let's just dive right in.
8 to 10. I want you to just let that sink in for a second. Before we even talk about specific subjects or test strategies, we have to establish the baseline. This blueprint demands a mandatory 8 to 10-hour daily commitment. Right out of the gate, it requires a total mindset shift from passive, casual reading to active, target-driven execution. Listen, if you want to clear the CPO exam, this is the engine that's going to get you there. It is an intense daily investment for sure, but every single minute is perfectly optimized.
So here's the roadmap for our explainer today. First up, the daily 10-hour engine. Second, the weekday subject breakdown. Third, the 100-day vocabulary plan. And finally, the Sunday mock test strategy. Basically, we're going to build the engine, fuel it up, and then learn how to maintain it.
All right, phase one, the daily 10-hour engine.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the absolute precision. Your day kicks off at 5:30 a.m. with a quick wake-up and some light exercise just to get the blood flowing, but look right at 6 a.m. It doesn't just say something vague like, study math for 2 hours. No, it says, math practice, 70 questions. And honestly, that is the secret sauce of this whole blueprint. It relies on concrete, actionable targets. Think about it. If you're just staring at a textbook for 2 hours, you might actually accomplish nothing. But if your strict target is 70 questions, you have to hustle. Then, after a quick breakfast break at 8 a.m., you are right back in the trenches at 9 a.m. with 60 reasoning questions. That's followed up by English at 10:30 a.m., where you're hitting 40 questions plus 20 vocabulary words. The morning is just this grueling, high-output block designed to get all of your heaviest cognitive lifting done before you even eat lunch.
Pushing into the late morning, right around 11:30 a.m., you shift gears to general studies revision, and you're focusing on just one subject at a time to keep it digestible. Then, you finally get a well-deserved lunch and some rest. And trust me, you'll need it, because at 2 p.m., the intensity ramps right back up. You dive into a massive 100-question mixed practice session focusing heavily on previous year questions, or PYQs. Then we hit what might actually be the most important hour of your entire day. At 4 p.m., you dedicate time to mock analysis and updating your error notebook. This is where you actually learn from all the mistakes you just made during those 100 mixed questions. Finally, you wrap up the evening from 7 to 8 p.m. with a lighter, 1-hour cooldown focused on formulas, vocabulary repetition, and current affairs.
Okay, part two, the weekday subject breakdown. We've seen the macro daily view, so let's zoom in on the micro day-by-day targets. On Monday, the focus is strictly dedicated to arithmetic. The blueprint gives you 80 total questions, but it breaks them down across very specific pillars. You are tackling 20 questions on percentages, 20 on profit and loss, 20 on simple and compound interest, and then finishing off with 20 previous year questions. The big takeaway here is that you aren't just doing math. You are surgically targeting 4 distinct arithmetic domains, so you start your week with absolute clarity.
But then Tuesday hits, and boom, the number jumps to 90.
So where are those 90 questions coming from? Well, Tuesday is Advanced Math Day. This part of the blueprint brilliantly isolates specific weak points that trip up a ton of candidates. You're hitting 30 questions on algebra, 20 on trigonometry, 20 on geometry, and another 20 previous year questions. Advanced math requires a completely different kind of problem-solving stamina than standard arithmetic, which is exactly why it gets its own dedicated high-volume day.
And hey, if you thought Tuesday sounded tough, just wait for Wednesday. The volume peaks right in the middle of the week at a whopping 110 questions.
Wednesday is literally a stress test for your endurance. It's a grueling mixed math gauntlet, 40 arithmetic questions, 40 advanced math questions, and 30 previous year questions. Doing it this way forces your brain to rapidly switch gears between different formulas and concepts, which is exactly what you'll have to do on the actual exam. It is a massive stress test for your math foundations.
Coming off that crazy Wednesday peak, Thursday shifts the focus entirely over to reasoning, bringing the target back to a solid 80 questions. This covers all the essential logical pillars. You'll be grinding through analogy, series, coding to coding, blood relation, direction, and puzzles. It's still a really high-volume day, but it's a different flavor of cognitive load, right? It gives your pure math muscles a bit of a breather, while keeping your logical processing super sharp.
To round out the work week, the focus shifts yet again. Friday is heavily dedicated to English. You're drilling close tests, error detection, fillers, reading comprehension, and sentence improvement. Then Saturday serves as a heavy, multi-subject general studies revision block. This is where you lock in your knowledge across history, geography, polity, economy, and science. By the time you go to sleep on Saturday night, you have systematically attacked every single pillar of the CPO exam. Exhausting? Absolutely, but incredibly comprehensive.
Moving right along to Part 3, the 100-day vocabulary plan.
Alongside the daily grind we just talked about, there's a highly specific 100-day long-term retention strategy woven in. And the methodology here is brilliant. It uses a powerful, compounding, 3-step daily repetition cycle. Step 1, learn 20 brand new words. Step 2, revise the 20 words you learned yesterday. And Step 3, revise the words you learned last week. This is spaced repetition in its absolute purest form. If you just learn 20 words and move on, I guarantee you'll forget them by next month. But this 3-step cycle practically forces these words to stick in your brain over the whole 100 days.
Now, it's really important to note that this vocabulary repetition doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It has to be paired with daily, targeted practice across 5 specific linguistic categories: synonyms, antonyms, idioms, one-word substitutions, and phrasal verbs. You're building the raw material, the words themselves, and then immediately applying them exactly the way the exam is going to test you.
So, you've survived Monday through Saturday. You've hit every single question target, you've revised your vocab, your brain is probably feeling like total mush. Which brings up the million-dollar question. What happens on Sunday?
Well, Part 4, the Sunday mock test strategy. Spoiler alert, it's not a day off.
You start your Sunday by sitting down and taking a full-length mock test under strict, real exam conditions. But listen, just taking the test isn't enough. The real secret to this whole system is the 2 to 3 hours of deep dive analysis that must follow immediately after. Most students take a mock test, look at their score, feel either great or terrible about it, and just move on. This blueprint forbids that. The real tangible growth happens in those 2 to 3 hours after the clock stops.
Here is exactly how you need to spend that analysis time. First, look at your wrong answers. You review these to identify absolute knowledge gaps. Next, your guessed answers. Even if you got them right, you have to review them to eliminate that false confidence. Third, time-consuming questions. If you got it right, but it took you 3 minutes, you need to find the shortcut so you can improve your speed. And finally, weak topics. You take all this data and use it to set your specific targets for the upcoming week. This is how you ensure you're actually improving week over week, instead of just repeating the exact same mistakes.
And that brings us to the end of our explainer. We've walked through the 10-hour daily engine, the brutal day-by-day subject targets, the compounding vocabulary cycle, and the Sunday mock test deep dive. The roadmap is entirely laid out in front of you. There are no more guessing games. So the only question left is, are you going to keep passively planning your study schedule, or are you ready to wake up and execute this 10-hour blueprint starting tomorrow morning? Thanks so much for joining me. Keep pushing hard, and I'll see you in the next one.